Imagine this. You're sipping coffee at a hawker center, scrolling TikTok, and suddenly, bam, you stumble into a shouting match between two Singaporeans. One is screaming, "China is our ancestral homeland, respect la." The other is snapping back, "Bro, if you love Beijing so much, then migrate law." Welcome to Singapore's most silent, yet spiciest divide, pro-China versus anti-China Singaporeans. Now, here's the thing. Singaporeans don't usually yell in public, except maybe at taxi uncles or when MRT breaks down. But bring up China. Suddenly everybody becomes a part-time geopolitical analyst. Half the country's like, "China strong, America weak, just accept reality now." The other half, "Hello? CCP is basically North Korea with better Wi-Fi." And the funniest part, both sides insist they're the true patriots of Singapore. The pro-China camp says Singapore must stick close to the motherland because, well, 75% of Singaporeans have Chinese roots. Meanwhile, the anti-China camp argues, "Excuse me, our whole identity is about not being swallowed up by Malaysia or China. That's literally why this country exists." So buckle up, because in the next few chapters, we're going to slice open this delicate Kaya toast of contradictions. From history lessons your MOE teacher never told you, to TikTok debates that make you question if Singapore is secretly Beijing's best offshore office. We're going deep. Stay till the end, because I promise you'll leave this video either laughing, angry, or confused about whether your favorite bubble tea brand is secretly funded by the Chinese Communist Party. Let's be honest. Singapore's relationship with China is like that awkward family reunion where your rich cousin shows up late, flashing a new Rolex, and starts telling everyone how to live their lives. You smile politely, but deep inside you're thinking, "Wah, this guy again." See, back in 1965, Singapore was basically the kid who got kicked out of Malaysia's house party. It had no natural resources, no oil, no land, only a bunch of ambitious overachievers who looked like they could be China's long-lost cousins. So naturally, everyone assumed Singapore would become China's loyal little sibling. Spoiler, it didn't. Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore's founding father, looked at Mao's Cultural Revolution and said, "No thanks, I prefer clean toilets and working lights." While China was busy destroying pianos and sending professors to farms, Singapore was busy teaching everyone how to queue properly and balance a national budget. Fast forward to today, and you'll find the generational split. The older Chinese-educated crowd still treats China like that glorious ancestral temple. You bow 3 times and hope the Wi-Fi connects. They grew up reading Sin Chu Jit Po and believe Chinese values will save humanity from Western decay. Meanwhile, the younger English-educated crowd sees China as that loud neighbor who keeps flexing military drills and exporting TikTok dances. They don't want to be Chinese Chinese. They want to be Singaporean Chinese, with Netflix, oat milk, and CPF top-ups. And here's the kicker. Both sides secretly think they're right. One says, without China, Asia no power law. The other says, without democracy, Asia no future law. But deep down, both agree on one sacred principle. As long as it doesn't affect BTO prices, can debate all day. If you want to see how divided Singapore really is about China, you don't need a poll. Just walk through Orchard Road on a Sunday. You'll see 2 kinds of people arguing without words. One group is proudly slurping bubble tea from Haiti, wearing Taobao clothes, and saying things like, "China product quality not bad what?" The other group is rolling their eyes, muttering, "Walao, these PRCs so noisy again," while secretly using Temu under the table. This is the daily hypocrisy of modern Singapore. Everyone claims to dislike China's influence, but also wants the latest Xiaomi gadget, cheapest massage chair, and of course, the unbeatable $3.99 delivery from Shopee. It's not ideology. It's convenience disguised as conviction. Go to any school and you'll find students proudly telling you, "I study Mandarin because it's useful for business." Translation: I don't actually like China, but I like money. Meanwhile, the English-educated crowd pretends they're immune, but their Instagram captions still have random Mandarin phrases like GIU, because, it's aesthetic. Workplaces are even funnier. When a mainland Chinese colleague joins the office, HR gives a lecture on cross-cultural understanding. 2 weeks later, the same people are whispering, "Hey, why he so direct, ah?" Then come Chinese New Year, everyone suddenly becomes pro-China for 48 hours. Dragon dance and bow, gong shi fa kai. Then on Monday, too many mainlanders in Singapore now la. Even the media plays both sides. Local news praises China's technological achievements, then runs another piece about foreign influence online. It's the Singapore way: criticize Beijing, but still buy its 5G equipment on discount. This love-hate dynamic isn't really about ideology. It's about the Singaporean superpower, pragmatism. If it works, we use it. If it fails, we say, "Sila, China again." And if it succeeds, we say, "Actually, we thought of that first." If diplomacy were a dating app, Singapore would have 2 open chats, one with Uncle Sam and one with Uncle Xi, and both are marked active now. The government's entire foreign policy is basically polyamory with plausible deniability. When China visits, we roll out the red carpet, cue dragon dances, and say Singapore and China share deep cultural ties. When the US drops by, the same ministers swap the cheongsam for a blazer and declare, "We are a proud partner in maintaining freedom of navigation." Translation: we'll smile at whoever pays the lunch bill. This tightrope walk isn't random, it's survival art. Lee Kuan Yew mastered it first. Talk about Confucian values in Beijing, then fly to Washington and quote Thomas Jefferson. Even today, every Singaporean diplomat carries 2 vocabularies, one for CNN, one for CCTV News. Look at recent trade numbers. China is Singapore's biggest trading partner. America is its biggest security umbrella. One builds your MRT line, the other defends it. So we praise both, like divorced parents funding your university. You can't pick sides when both send allowance. And notice how the messaging works. When Beijing gets too aggressive, Singapore gently reminds everyone, "We are a small nation. We don't take sides." But when Washington asks for a naval exercise, we're suddenly a strategic maritime hub. In short, neutrality with a 20-page sponsorship disclaimer. Ordinary Singaporeans sense it too. The pro-China crowd says, "Our government's so wise, always respect motherland." The anti-China side says, "Wow, we're becoming China's puppet." Meanwhile, policymakers quietly think, if both sides are angry, that means we balanced perfectly. That's Singapore's magic formula: pretend to be Switzerland, act like Wall Street, and survive like Hong Kong before 1997. You can spot them instantly. At any cafe in Singapore, just listen. One table is chatting softly in English about CPF returns. Another is shouting across the room, "Congratulations, you've entered the PRC versus Singaporean Chinese simulation. Same face, different firmware." See, when mainland Chinese migrants first arrived in large numbers in the 2000s, Singaporeans thought, "No problem, they're Chinese like us, just plug and play." What nobody realized is that cultural compatibility isn't like Bluetooth. The hardware matched, but the operating system crashed. PRCs came with unfiltered confidence: talk loud, move fast, bargain harder. Singaporeans, masters of subtle sarcasm and quiet passive aggression. One side says, "We are proud of China's rise." The other says, "Ya law, but must you talk so loud in MRT?" And here's the irony. Singapore loves the idea of being global, as long as the foreigners don't move next door. Everyone wants to benefit from China's money, but nobody wants to share a condo lift with it. Agents advertise mainland-friendly properties, while tenants whisper, "No PRCs, please." It's a national hypocrisy disguised as community preference. Even dating apps reflect the divide. Mainland users brag about owning businesses in Shanghai, while local Chinese women reply, "Thanks, but I prefer men who queue." The cultural friction is hilarious. Singaporeans think PRCs are too arrogant, and PRCs think Singaporeans are too obedient. Both are right, but here's the twist. Singapore's success actually depends on this friction. Without PRC students, local universities would have less funding. Without PRC tourists, Orchard Road would sound like a funeral. Singapore needs China's noise to keep its economy alive, just not too loud, please. So the government plays mediator in a family argument. We all Chinese, but behave lah. The truth? Singapore is the only Chinese majority country on earth that secretly fears being too Chinese. From the outside, Singapore looks like that model student sitting in the front row. Perfect grades, polished uniform, never speaks unless spoken to. But depending on who's watching, she's either China's favorite child or America's undercover agent. Let's start with how Beijing sees Singapore. To China, this little island is living proof that Confucian capitalism works. Discipline, family values, zero nonsense. Chinese officials visit and go, "Wow, this is what Shanghai should have been if people didn't argue so much." They see Singapore as the ideal Chinese city-state, except inconveniently independent, like a child who graduated and refuses to move back home. But Western observers? Oh, they love Singapore's efficiency, until they realize there's no protest allowed after 10 p.m. To them, Singapore is China with better PR. The Economist writes glowing editorials about Singapore's clean government, then adds, "But it's not a democracy, you know." It's the same tone your aunt uses when she says, "He's handsome, but unemployed." Southeast Asian neighbors aren't sure either. Malaysia jokes that Singapore is Beijing's obedient student. Indonesia says it's Washington's favorite Asian pet. Thailand just shrugs and says, "At least they have working trains." Every side projects its insecurity onto Singapore's neutrality, mistaking survival instinct for ideology. In reality, Singapore is just doing what small nations do best, playing both pianos at once. Western investors, welcome. Chinese infrastructure money, also welcome. Just don't fight in the living room, can. This dual identity confuses everyone except Singaporeans, who know exactly what they're doing, eating American burgers, drinking bubble tea, investing in Alibaba, and watching Netflix dramas about CIA conspiracies, all at the same time. To the world, that looks like contradiction. To Singapore, it's just Tuesday. Here's the ultimate Singapore paradox. 75% of the population is ethnically Chinese. Yet most don't actually want to be Chinese. It's like owning an iPhone, but pretending it's just a communication device. This identity tension runs deep. From young, Singaporeans are told they're Asia's best bilinguals, English at school, Mandarin at home. But let's be honest, by adulthood, most can't decide which they hate more, speaking Mandarin or listening to someone else speak it too well. When a PRC speaks fluent Mandarin, locals say, "Wow, so China." When a local speaks broken Mandarin, PRCs say, "You call that Chinese?" So everyone switches to English out of self-defense. Culturally, Singaporeans walk a tightrope. Too Western, and you're accused of forgetting your roots. Too Eastern, and people say you're backward. So everyone ends up in the middle, sipping Starbucks while watching Chinese period dramas on Netflix. It's a country full of hybrids, perfectly bilingual and perpetually insecure. This isn't accidental, it's engineered. The state built a multiracial Chinese majority, English-speaking nation. That's like asking Gordon Ramsay to make healthy instant noodles. It works, but you can taste the internal conflict. So when global events heat up, US-China rivalry, Taiwan crisis, TikTok bans, Singaporeans feel personally attacked. Suddenly your identity is international politics. Your skin tone becomes a debate. Your language becomes diplomacy, and your opinion becomes evidence for someone's conspiracy theory. In the end, Being Singaporean Chinese isn't about loving or hating China. It's about performing balance, appearing loyal to heritage while staying allergic to ideology. Pragmatism has replaced nationalism. The only flag everyone salutes is the one on their bank app. So after all this talk, who's right? The pro-China crowd waving red flags, or the anti-China gang quoting CNN headlines? Honestly, both and neither. Because in true Singapore fashion, the real winner is the one who minds their own business, makes money quietly, and tells both sides. Aya, don't overthink lah. Singapore doesn't need to choose between China and the West. It already built a luxury condo right between them. While Beijing lectures about shared destiny, and Washington rants about freedom and democracy, Singapore's counting its dividends, topping up CPF, and flying to Bali for the long weekend. That's the real secret. Ideology is noise. Pragmatism is peace. While the rest of the world burns flags, Singapore burns incense and renews its passport. But beneath that calm smile, the identity conflict remains. Every Singaporean is a little bit east and a little bit west, a hybrid species born from colonial logic and ancestral guilt. It's what makes Singapore resilient and occasionally neurotic. You love China's discipline, admire America's creativity, and secretly wish both would stop fighting so you can focus on your hawker lunch. In the end, pro-China and anti-China are just two halves of the same anxiety, a fear of becoming too much like someone else. Because deep down, Singapore doesn't want to be China or America. It wants to be the one country that profits from both without ever saying who it loves more. And that's the question I'll leave you with. If survival means never choosing sides, is that wisdom or cowardice? Tell me in the comments. And be honest,